Welcome to Christian Statesman. I'm your host, Zach Wagner, and this is episode 97, The Awakened Mindset, Part 1. We have discussed the cost of awakening. It is a dear price when one realizes that the facade of polite society and functional government and economy is exactly that, a facade. And it is a facade whose veneer is becoming mighty thin these days. But if these realizations are not acted upon, the information has been discovered in vain. In order to benefit from the information that promotes the awakened mind, one must adopt an awakened mindset. What is such a mindset? What specifics does that mindset entail? We can break such a mentality into two distinct categories, the temporal and spiritual. Today, we cover the temporal or practical applications of being awake. History is a profound teacher if we pay attention. Often, we need to read between the lines of historical events to gain a fuller understanding. During World War II, a rarely discussed subject beyond men, machines, and tactics is the availability of supplies and materials. This applied not just to military forces, but civilian as well. More recently, during Hurricane Katrina in Louisiana, we saw a similar phenomenon, an unavailability of necessities for a brief period due to circumstances of the storm's aftermath. The fundamental question for the awakened mind is this: can you imagine a world in which the supply chain that we have become so accustomed to is suddenly interrupted? That interruption could last for days, weeks, or even months. But what happens if it collapses for many months or even years? I know for a fact that 4 out of 5 people I talk to cannot ever imagine such a circumstance, and most believe in the system as it is now configured, speculating that there will always be someone somewhere to bring the goods into a store for them. That is fatal thinking. Not only can supply lines be interrupted, they can be permanently destroyed. A significant portion of the U.S. military's on-the-field strategies involve interrupting supply lines. An opponent that cannot resupply cannot fight for long. Does anyone believe that we as Americans have absolutely no adversaries that would integrate such a strategy against us? Is there anyone out there naive enough to not understand the chaos that would result from a month-long interruption of our standard supply chains, something that could easily be accomplished by merely knocking out our power grid, a possibility discussed in many places, including Ted Koppel's landmark book, Lights Out. There are a number of ways to interrupt or collapse our just-in-time deliveries that feed and supply the average American. Do you have the fortitude to envision a time when that might not be possible, at least for a time? The second question for the awakened mind is a simple corollary. What have you done to prepare yourself against such a contingency? Do you have a supply of food, water, clothing, medical necessities, light, power, and other supplies that could see you and your loved ones through such a period? Again, the grand majority of people I speak with would chafe at such a question, labeling anyone who so thought and prepared as a conspiracy theorist or a doomsday prepper. But in the broader fabric of history, such a mentality is simple common sense. Just in the last century, in countries all across the world, such scenarios of widespread public want have repeated over and over again. Just look up a little-discussed chapter in history called the Berlin Airlift as one of the innumerable examples. If you read, study, and search out examples, you will find an almost unlimited number of incidences over the last 100-plus years that have affected untold millions of people. But this is America, the skeptical say. That could never happen here. And what makes us so special? Is there some sort of special exemption that identifies the good old U.S. of A. as immune from the ever-repeating cycles of history? Do we have some sort of pixie dust that causes us not to be subject to the same historical dynamics every other empire in the last 5 millennia has suffered through? The awakened mind sees all of this and takes specific and distinct steps to prepare. It is called self-reliance or independent functionality. If you believe that the corrupt bureaucrats running virtually everything have your best interest in mind and will keep things rolling in your favor indefinitely, go right on ahead and keep moving forward with your head in the sand. If you have learned better, if your mind has been awakened, Start fortifying and supplying your household for any type of contingency. You can never regret being thoroughly prepared. Thank you for joining us today. Please subscribe, and as always, have a blessed day.